Welcome back to Gothic Homemaking. Today we're going to go in search of one of Goth's most iconic symbols, human skulls. It's just Dr. Frankenweenie installing the new chandelier. How's it coming along, Herr Doctor?
It's alive!
Yeah, we all know the drill.
It is alive. Why don't you let me say it?
Look, I'm gonna have another job for you in a little while. Why don't you just take 5?
I put the tools in the closet.
No. Don't put anything in the closet. The closet's already jam-packed.
With skeletons? Do you have skeletons in your closet?
I do not have skeletons in my closet, sir.
Why not?
Huh, that's a good question. Maybe we can fix that. I returned to Seattle to the Nevertold Casket Company, but this time to see my good friend, resident skull expert, Tiffany Astrid. Hi, Tiffany.
Hey, Voltaire.
How are you?
All right.
I am in the market for human remains. Do you have anything like that?
We do have a lot of things like that. You've come to the right place. Why don't you step around and I'll show you what we have.
I'm allowed back there?
Yes, you are.
Oh, excellent.
So, we have a lot of different things. We have a mummified human hand, but we also have a lot of bones here. We have scapula, rib bones, pelvic bones. My personal favorites are always the clean human skulls. We also just put out this really interesting one. It is very, very interesting. It has a huge past. It's pre-Columbian. It's Aztec origin.
Aztec?
It is. We actually had it verified, and I'm a little intimidated by it, to be honest. But
It might be haunted?
we have had a lot of people saying that it is.
Really?
But anyway, if you would like to take a look at something like this, it is a little higher in cost just because of the history of it. But
So what does something like this run for?
this one's $2,200.
$2,200.
Which actually is still reasonable. We always try to keep everything reasonably priced, just because we want people to be able to get things that they like.
What's this guy's story? He's looking a little fresher than the others.
Yes, he actually is very fresh. His name is Christopher. We call him that after Christopher Lee, who is very handsome, and the skull is also very handsome, in my opinion.
Any self-respecting horror fan has got to love Christopher Lee. And what does Christopher run for?
He is from England, very, very rare, because usually skulls are from India or China, and so obviously we have him priced accordingly. We have him priced at $2,800.
$2,800.
But if you wanted something like a little more,
Well, let me stop you right there.
yeah,
Is it legal for me to own this?
it is. Yeah, perfectly
It's
legal.
legal to own human remains?
It is. Yeah, it's perfectly legal. If you go to an estate sale of like a retired doctor, his family will be selling his belongings. You'll find oftentimes human remains, bone, because they use that for study back in the olden days. Now they obviously use models.
Thank you so much for your time and for showing me these specimens. It's been really, really fascinating, and I really appreciate your time. Unfortunately, I think they're all a little bit out of my budget for the day. But what's this?
That's a raccoon penis bone.
How much is this?
That is $8.
Oh, I'll take this.
Okay. Is that it?
Yeah, I need something to stir my coffee with.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
I hate you. This is every day for me.
Back in New York City, I went to Evolution. Now that I knew that I could buy human skulls, I figured I'd get them closer to home and save on shipping.
Hi, Janice.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm all right. I see you have some human remains back there.
We sure do.
And where do you tend to get these specimens?
Usually from retired doctors, professors. They were used to teach mostly, and say they retire and they're like, I don't need a skeleton, or they die and their families are like, this is incredibly creepy. Will you please buy this from us and never let us see it again?
So I can buy anything that's in those cabinets, right?
Sadly, no. I can only sell to medical professionals like a doctor, pathologist, ME, that sort of thing. We're a not-for-transfer tissue bank, and we can only sell for educational purposes.
All right, well, I guess I'll go get a medical degree and come back.
Please come back in 8 years.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, I wasn't able to get a skull, but I did pick up these fantastic raccoon penis bones. Shut up, Orville.
Next, it was off to Obscura. You may recall their show Oddities, on which I appear. If anybody knows about skulls, it's my friend Mike Zone.
Hey Voltaire, can I help you with anything?
Mike, how are you?
Good, Voltaire, how have you been?
All right. Is this for sale?
That is for sale.
What is it?
That is what's called a exploded skull or a Beauchene skull, and it's basically an exploded view of a human skull. That was $3,500.
$3,500.
Yeah.
But I can't buy this.
Sure you can.
I can?
If you got the money, you can buy it.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, so I've been told that I cannot buy human remains unless I'm a medical professional or an educator.
That is not exactly correct.
Okay.
In New York State, you're allowed to buy medical bones and skulls. There are some you can't buy. American Indian remains, that's federal. That's a felony. You cannot touch them, own them, buy them anywhere. And you can't disinter a grave. That's also frowned upon. People ask me this all the time. And we've actually had lawyers, like real lawyers, looking at this, trying to find the law in New York State. If it's illegal, there's got to be a law. Well, it turns out there is no law.
Interesting. Very interesting. Well, if I could afford this, I would buy it right on the spot, but I don't think I can. But I will take one of those raccoon penis bones.
Okay. Cheap bastard.
If there's anything I learned from trying to buy human skulls, it's that they're expensive. As it happens, I'm not a purist. I don't care if it's a real skull or not, I just want it to look good. So I did a search on eBay, and I found these resin skulls from a Chinese company. Exquisite workmanship, great sculpture, very realistic. This is a skull I can work with. My next acquisition was less lucky. I bought a bunch of these skulls. The sculpting is terrible, the paint job is totally fake, there's nothing I can do with this. Or is there? I first made a hole in the skull using this Milwaukee hole saw. Then I painted the skull black using Krylon black lacquer spray paint. With a silver Sharpie, I made abstract tribal designs on the skull. And now you can use a skull like this to hold your pencils or your paintbrushes, or a creepy dried flower arrangement like this one. Forgotten Boneyard makes whimsical creations using actual bones, like this incredible piece made of 7 skulls. His alien facehugger is pretty amazing too. And if you don't like art made from real bones, you'll be happy to know he's reproducing some of his best designs in plastic. This mirror is one of his real bone creations that was given to me by a friend. It's made of snake vertebrae and has a flying fox skull. Morning Bright is another artist that I follow. This Australian bone artist is very socially conscious and makes whimsical creatures out of discarded bones. My favorite pieces by her are the functional ones, like this popcorn lamp made from chicken vertebrae and a found horn. This piece is my favorite, which is why I just had to have one for the Lair. And it lights up. Catacomb culture is another one of my Instagram favorites. Their reproductions are so realistic they look like they were dug out of the Parisian catacombs. Their lamps in particular are amazing, and in fact, they've inspired this week's project. The Bordello Bones Table Lamp. Well, it all started with a trip to Home Depot where they had a large lamp selection. I found this one, but I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get that crystal ball out of the middle.
I hope this is gonna work.
Next, I loosened the nut on the bottom of the lamp, and I cut the electrical cord. Doing this allowed me to take the entire lamp apart. Then I reassembled the lamp. I grabbed one of my resin skulls, and with a paddle bit, I made a hole just slightly larger than the stem of the lamp. And then I simply threaded the skull onto the lamp. At that point, I reassembled the rest of the lamp and reinserted the electrical cable, pulling it out through the bottom and putting it in place. And now I had managed to put the skull in the middle of this lamp. I found this cream scallop dome lampshade at lampsplus.com. However, this off-white floral pattern was not gonna do, so it was time to redo this lamp. To that end, I created a template by placing a piece of craft paper on top of the lamp and tracing the outline. I then cut out that piece of paper and with 3M Super 77, I sprayed it onto a piece of cardboard. I cut that out, and then I had a nice, hard template. Now, I knew that this lamp was going to give off a warm glow, but I knew how to fix that. I went to the set shop in New York City, and I selected some purple gels. I was going to use a little trick I learned from my filmmaking days. I placed the template on the purple gels and cut them out. Then I sprayed the gels, as well as the lampshade, with 3M Super 77. When they were both dry, I stuck them together. Next, I cut away this atrocious fringe. Now, for the new fabric for the lampshade, I went to spoonflower.com and I found this amazing print that had skulls and tentacles. There is no question I asked myself more than, can this be blacker? And unfortunately, with print-on-demand fabric places, sometimes the blacks just aren't as black as you want them to be. Luckily, I'd also ordered this Spoonflower book of samples, so I was able to find the fabrics in which the blacks printed the most dark. I attached a swatch of the fabric to the lampshade. I sprayed Super 77 on the lampshade and then also on the fabric, and when they were dry, I stuck them together. Then I simply cut off the excess with a scissor. I was careful to cover the parts that were finished to make sure I didn't get spray glue on them. And then the lampshade was refinished in this amazing skull pattern. I went to M&J Trimming, and from their monstrous selection of trim, I found this beautiful fringe, as well as this wonderful ribbon for the ribs. With my industrial glue gun, I glued the ribbon onto the bones of the lampshade. And then I attached the fringe. Next, I attached these tassels with some cut tacks, and I went to Beads of Paradise in New York and bought hand-cut amethysts. I glued the amethyst to the lamp with some super glue. After the fact, I felt that the lamp was too shiny and new looking, so I got some ebony rub and buff and I covered the lamp in that. Once that was dry, I dry brushed pewter and silver rub and buff over the black. Next, I painted the base of the lamp black to match the shade. Now remember those raccoon penis bones? I drilled holes in the bottom of the skull, and then with hot glue, I glued the raccoon penis bones into the skull to give it a tentacle look. Next, I glued the lower jaw of the skull to the base of the lamp, and I added a couple of raccoon penis bones to that as well. And here you have it, the finished Bordello Bones table lamp. There was just one last thing to do, and I knew just the guy to do it.
How's it coming along, Herr Doctor?
It's alive!
Darn! Gods, that's really annoying, you know that?
I don't have to take this scheiße from you. I'm going to visit my friend Hayati in the freezer.
Fine, suit yourself. But you better watch out for the poopies.
Poopies?
Not all Germans are as weird as Dr. Frankenwiener. He's a freak. I met some great Germans when I performed at Wave Gotik Treffen, a huge goth festival in Leipzig, Germany. I met this hardcore Gothic fellow who was wearing an animal spine on top of his own. But I met some gentler folk as well, like this beautiful fairy woman. Her headdress, the skulls and bones, were sculpted entirely by her. I eventually stumbled into this majestic booth. The booth of Maskenzauber Erlebenskunst. She makes amazing headdresses suitable for a goblin king or queen. And if you don't like having animal parts on you, there's no need to worry because they're all hand sculpted. If you can't make it to Wave Gotik Treffen, I recommend Hysteria Machine on Instagram. She makes these amazing headdresses worthy of an evil queen. And it's another great vegan option because all of her work is cast in resin. Wren Britton is another one of my favorite artists. He goes by Purevile. He makes dark accessories out of bones and all manner of found objects. I recently went to his home to see if he could make something specifically for me.
Oh, hey, Voltaire. Come on in.
Wren, my boy. Your brand is Purevile.
Yes, it is.
What is the etymology of that word? Are you purely vile?
It actually started in high school. A teacher of mine called me vile.
Oh, wow.
She did not like how I looked, did not like anything about me, so she called me Vile. So I thought it would be funny to make that my brand name. So for a while it was just Vile. Since I was young, I wanted to be an entomologist and study insects. When I got older, I was trying to figure out a way to use that in my work. So I think that's something, that's something that could be considered, under the umbrella of goth, because there's a macabreness to it, taxidermy and like mounted insects and things like that.
But it also brings, it brings to mind other aspects as opposed to goth, like academia, for instance, exploring.
Yes.
It brings to mind science.
Yes,
And it brings to mind antiquated science. And
yes, there's definitely a lot of that. I have a great renown for like old things, for like decaying things that are kind of like forgotten. Almost everything I use is found if I don't make it myself. So.
And how do you go about finding all of these things? Where do you find bones and broken dolls and things like that?
Estate sales and stuff. And then I also go to Dead Horse Bay, which is like my favorite place.
What is Dead Horse Bay?
Lay down the bottle.
Rather than tell me, he took me to Dead Horse Bay, otherwise known as Bottle Beach, for reasons you'll soon understand.
In like the 30s, it was a glue factory. And so that's where they got the name Dead Horse Bay, because after they were done taking the marrow of the bones, they would throw the bones into the ocean. And then after the glue factory shut down, it became a town dump.
It sounds like a treasure trove of weird things.
It is. It's an amazing place. It's trash, but I think it's amazing because it's trash from like a different time. So it's a different kind of trash.
It's artisanal trash.
It is artisanal trash.
It'll push away what you have, then you'll just have bottles.
We never did find an extraordinary bone to make a piece from, but we did find love in an abandoned boat. I mean, what were we expecting to find? Something like this?
Well, Wren did eventually make the perfect piece for me, and he told me I could pick it up from him at the Morbid Anatomy Flea Market in Brooklyn, New York. Take a look. There was no shortage of skulls at the Morbid Anatomy Flea Market, as well as antlers and other animal bones. I found this knife made out of a jawbone, as well as these earrings made of mandibles, handmade by local artisans. There were creepy insects on display, and these wet samples were being sold by my friend Mark Splatter. Speaking of old friends, Evan from Oddities was there as well. And across the room was my buddy Mike Zone signing autographs for his fans. Stealing the show was this booth full of skulls and medical oddities and articulated skeletons, and it was the booth of Ryan Matthew Cohn, also of Oddities fame. Well, I caught up with Wren at his booth, and he showed me the piece he had made for me. It was this absolutely stunning antler gauntlet. It looked like something Jareth from Labyrinth would wear, so I fell in love with it immediately. I asked him what I owed him for it, and he said it's free, for making out with him in an abandoned boat. You sure? Yup. Certain? Uh-huh. Nah, I'm just kidding. But it was worth every penny.
Well, I absolutely love my new Purevile antler gauntlet. But moreover, while I was at the Museum of Morbid Anatomy, I ordered a very special skeleton from Ryan Matthew Cohn and his lovely wife, Regina Marie Cohn. But better still, they invited me to their museum-like home to pick it up. Take a look. Hi, Regina. Hi, Ryan.
Hi, Voltaire.
Hey, Voltaire. Come on in.
So good to see you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Nice
Hey,
to see you.
Voltaire.
Nice to see you.
I'm glad you could finally come over.
It's an incredible collection.
To say their house is a museum when people come to see them is a gross understatement. I think it's safe to say that the Cohens have the largest collection of human remains in New York City.
This is actually where we keep a lot of our tribal artifacts, things like shrunken heads.
They collect skulls and shrunken heads and wax figures. It is really, truly a sight to behold.
I guess we consider this, our wax room?
It's our wax room.
Who's this big fellow?
Oh, that guy's great, and he actually is a pair to this one over here. One of the reasons why they're so large is they would have been used in anatomical theater, so that when the teacher was explaining each part of the human body, everyone in the amphitheater would be able to see and relate to whatever specific thing they were talking about.
Well, this must be your skeleton room.
That's actually our dining room.
Voltaire, haven't you realized that pretty much every room is our skeleton room?
No bones about it. So this is where you have your meals.
Also, this is where we entertain.
And is this what I think it is?
That's your articulated hissing cat.
It's absolutely fantastic. I think it's going to look really, really perfect in the Lair of Voltaire. Thank you so much. And thank you for the tour.
Anytime, man. Next time we'll have a bottle of wine to go with the cat.
I will take you up on that. And now we finally have a skeleton in the lair, though it may not exactly be in the closet.
Auf Wiedersehen, Yeti, mein Herr.
What are you eating?
Chocolate pudding?
You sick, sick bastard! You're eating the Yeti poop, aren't you?
That is not true.
It is true.
Nein, this is not true.
It is true.
Nein, nein, it's a lie. A lie. Ha 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 ha!
This episode was sponsored by Morning Bright.
La entrevista va a ser en español. ¿Por cuánto tiempo has sido un homosexual?